What's happening, guys? It's your buddy Grizz, and now that The Division has been out for almost a week, I've had a good amount of time to play it. I think I really got a sense of what's going on, so I figured I'd do a proper review for you guys and let you all know what I think about it. But before I get into that, I just want to address something that I said in my review of the beta a couple videos ago that I realized was a bit confusing because it sounded like I was asking for something that was already in the game, which was not really what I meant. What I had said was I had hoped The Division had quests and dungeons that you would, basically absolutely need a team of friends to complete, dungeons that had a big boss battle at the end, and, would be next to impossible to complete alone, like the ones in Destiny. Someone pointed out to me after I uploaded the video that The Division does have these already, and he is completely right about that. The missions in The Division can be extremely tough, and you almost always need to have a crew running with you to be successful in it, provided that you're, at the right level and everything for that mission. And yes, I know that they do have bosses at the end of them too. But when I said that, I was talking more about the kind of mission that you need to set aside a good few hours to complete. The missions in The Division are definitely challenging and usually end with a tough boss fight, so that checks those two off the list, but when it comes to the length of these missions, you need less than an hour to finish them when you're running with a squad. So I guess the length of the missions is the only thing that doesn't exactly fulfill the vision I had in my head for this game. But just to be clear, this doesn't mean that I don't like it or I'm disappointed in any way with the game. Quite the contrary, actually. So let's get right into the review here and I'll let you know what I mean. So for anyone out there who doesn't already know what The Division is all about yet, it's a third-person MMO shooter when you boil it down. Heavily based around the notions of cover and teamwork. You can play by yourself, co-op up to 4 people per group, and there's also a PvP aspect to it, but it is never forced. Just watch your back though, because you might be the nicest guy in the dark zone and still end up getting shot in the back randomly, even after you just finished helping the dude. Yes, the dark zone is a scary place for sure. Personal opinion, I love it. Full disclosure, this is my very first MMO ever though, so I am very much still learning the ropes and everything, but man, I'm absolutely loving my experience with The Division. I think it's excellent. There is not much I would change about it as far as the gameplay goes. It's pretty damn awesome, so let's just hit on a couple of my favorite parts about The Division to get started here. Starting with the visuals, the animations, the graphics, and I guess just the city itself, I'm really impressed with the detail Ubisoft has put into recreating New York City as best as they could. This has to be one of the most accurate representations of any city in any video game ever. They did a really amazing job of making you feel like you were actually walking around in the streets of a New York City descended into chaos. The skyscrapers in the background, the abandoned cars scattered everywhere, the dark alleys and rooftops, they all add up to one of the most incredible game settings I've ever experienced. The movement is super smooth and feels intuitive, which is essential for a cover-based shooter like this. And the animations of the enemies and civilians are also very well done. The gameplay is sort of reminiscent of Gears of War a little bit, just because of the high emphasis on staying in cover as much as possible and the dive rolling and all that. Moving from cover to cover is very neatly done by simply pointing to where you want your character to go and then holding the spacebar. Your character will then sprint to that point. Meanwhile, you can feel free to reload or switch weapons, whatever you need, which is very nice. As for what you're going to be doing in the game, the missions are super fun to run with a full group, but if you want to run them alone, it is possible, and it is kind of fun as well. It's a little bit more hectic, but I'll tell you right now, any mission you do solo is going to be a heck of a lot harder than if you're running with a group or even one other person. So I'd say if you can help it at all, try to have at least one other person with you. Which brings me to another really cool aspect I love about The Division, and that is the player search feature that's available in the safe houses. Now, you can also do this at the start of any mission before you play it, but in the safe houses, you can look for other players just to team up and run around the world with. At any given point, when you walk into a safe house, there's guaranteed to be at least a few other players in there getting set up. So all you really have to do is walk up to them and hit tab and ask if they want to join your group. Boom, instant friend-making feature. Good job, Ubisoft. You'll also find other players randomly running around in your game too that you can ask to team up with, which I think is pretty neat, in case you come across anyone just randomly. But it's much more common to run into other players in the dark zone. So, but you know, they are out there in your normal game as well. So keep an eye out for friendly agents. So Ubisoft has done a really great job of encouraging people to play together and to make new connections too, which I think is really great. But the last thing I want to mention here before I get into talking about maybe the couple not so good things I have to say about the game is that the leveling system and the gear system is also very well executed, which is important for an MMO. And now, like I said, this is my first MMO, so I'm not an expert or anything, but I find the way that they have your character customization and the gear laid out in the game is really quite excellent. And they have a lot of cool clothing options to dress up your character with as well. Notice my awesome purple jacket here. And also, I'm wearing this trooper hat, not to be like Rick Grimes or anything, but because I'm Canadian and I figure I'm going to be the Mountie of New York. Speaking of gear, there is tons of it out there, and actually another small little annoyance I have is with the multitude of weapons and gear options out there is that sometimes you'll get a new weapon or a new piece of armor or something that's really awesome and you're super pumped to use, and then like 5 minutes later you find something even better. So I kind of get a little bit disappointed sometimes when I find some awesome gun and then a couple minutes later I find an even more awesome one. Now I realize that sounds like a really dumb thing to complain about, but I'm always just like, man, I was really excited to use that AUG for a while or whatever it may be, and now there's just no point. Just a small annoyance for me. Now I want to move on to the things I feel could be a bit better in The Division. First and foremost is the storyline. And it's not that it's a bad story or anything. In fact, I actually find the idea of a virus spreaded through tainted bills on Black Friday to be a very cool base story. Even something I could sort of see happening in real life, as messed up as that is. But my problem is with the way that they tell the story. An important note, I am not completely finished the story yet, so I don't know if it'll all come together in the end or not, but as of right now, I know the basis for the story, but beyond that, it's all a bit fuzzy. Let me explain. The story is told mainly through completing missions, obviously, but the missions themselves, while they are fun, they lack defining moments or characteristics, I guess. In all honesty, they're kind of forgettable. They all consist of basically the same thing. Fight your way through this set of enemies, move on to the next set, which are slightly stronger, then on to the next, etc., until you reach the final boss room, where you face, one more round of this, plus a boss who literally eats bullets. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that it isn't fun going through the missions, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that there's never really a clear indication why you need to go to this certain place or who exactly you're fighting. And that's another big thing. The factions don't really have that many differences between them when you really look at them. Obviously you can tell when you're fighting the Cleaners or when you're fighting the Rikers or whatnot, but there aren't a whole lot of differences between the way they fight or the weapons they use. So unless you're really paying attention to the dialogue, you won't really know why or what you're doing. And the dialogue can definitely be hard to focus on when you're in like a group of friends, since you'll all most likely be chatting about the recent kick-ass weapon or piece of gear you found. I even put my subtitles on and I still find it hard. I never really know what we're doing or why we're doing it, but I know there are baddies to be shot, and I am more than happy to do the shooting. The story is also told through bits of intel, I guess if you want to call it, scattered around the map like dropped cell phones, and they'll either just play a phone conversation or a voicemail someone left, and it will have some small subcontext of a story, but mostly these are just random tidbits that don't really seem to lend much to the overall story of the outbreak. Just struggles people have had during it, and I guess it does immerse you a bit more, it helps to fill in the gaps a bit, but what gaps are they actually filling? I'm not entirely sure yet. hopefully it will all come together in the end. Another part of this game that I feel is a little bit underwhelming is the Dark Zone. Yes, it definitely has a challenge to it. It's definitely a challenge to survive in there against the mobs or whatever we're going to call them in this game. But the most fun and challenging part of the Dark Zone is the PvP. That being said, there's not a whole lot of people going rogue in the Dark Zone because there's not that much of an incentive to do so. If you manage to survive your rogue status, it's not like you get a bunch of experience for it or a bunch of money. It's actually a pretty small reward for such a huge risk. So the risk reward there in the Dark Zone of going rogue is a little bit skewed. Going rogue pretty much paints a target on your back, and that pretty much sends every agent in the area to try to hit it. Basically, what's missing here is a nice incentive for people to actually engage other agents. But before I go, I wanted to offer a couple suggestions on what I think could push The Division from being a great game to a fantastic game. And I want to bring back that original point I made at the start of the video about what I wanted the missions to be like. We need crazy, epic missions like the stuff you'd find in Destiny. Real long challenges, missions that would take a group of 4 hours to complete, and we need more variety in these missions as well. Instead of just having the same boss over and over again, how about having a boss that's actually, two guys driving a Jeep around with a mounted machine gun on it, or maybe a motorbike, a guy driving a motorbike that moved really fast. Something that would force you to change up your playstyle a bit. Something other than sitting back, reinforcing cover, setting up your support station, and then just feeding bullets into a guy who is slowly moving towards you. We need something down in the subway system. We want to assault the Empire State Building, fighting our way to the top and getting some kick-ass loot for doing so. And as far as the Dark Zone goes, we definitely need more than what it is right now. There should be Dark Zone exclusive missions where you have to go up against the worst of the worst in New York City. That's apparently where they are, in the Dark Zone. Guys who've pillaged and killed their way to the top of a group inside the Dark Zone. We need more incentive to engage in the PvP. Give us a better reward if we survive rogue status. Or maybe you could create a separate arena where most of the PvP action can take place. Maybe they could make, Madison Square Garden into like a PvP arena where games of Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and King of the Hill took place. Maybe not Madison Square Garden because I think that's in like the normal map, but some sort of building where it would be like PvP exclusive. I think that would be really cool. But just to wrap things up here, I really like what Ubisoft has done with this game, and apparently it is their most popular launch of any title in their history, so obviously a lot of other people are enjoying it as well. And that's a pretty crazy achievement too, considering this is a brand new IP for them. I just hope that they'll be able to come up with some really interesting DLC to keep us playing for a long time. Increasing the level cap would be a good idea too, as most of my friends and I are almost at 30 now, and I know that a lot of people who streamed the game reached rank 30 pretty quickly and easily, so a cap increase is definitely going to be needed here as well. But if you're still on the fence about buying this game, I can tell you 100% that I am so happy with my purchase. I'm so glad I bought this game, and I really think you should buy it too, because it is a heck of a lot of fun and it's really enjoyable. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. If you did and you'd like to show it a little love, you can always do so by hitting that like button down below. My name's Grizz, and as always, if you're new around here, I'd love it if you became my buddy and hit that subscribe button, guy. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the game if you're playing it, and if there's anything you'd like to see from the game, anything you'd be interested in hearing more about, maybe having a breakdown of, I'll gladly try to do that for you. Just leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.